The November wind of New York City sliced through Maria Petrova's coat as she stood before the glass towers of Volkov Enterprises. The billionaire's empire glittered against the skyline, but to her, it was nothing more than a monument built on her father's grave. Her father, Alexander Petrova, once a proud American entrepreneur in Chicago, had been ruined by Volkov's ruthless business takeover. Within a year, Alexander was penniless, humiliated, and dead of a heart attack. Maria had sworn to finish what her father couldn't. The plan was simple: infiltrate Volkov's life, get close, gather evidence, and tear him down from the inside. She had secured an interview as a live-in housekeeper at his estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, a mansion whispered about in tabloids but rarely seen by outsiders. Inside the estate, marble staircases twisted like serpents, chandeliers burned with cold fire, and priceless art loomed from every wall. The head butler, an older American named Mr. Harrison, eyed Maria suspiciously. "Mr. Volkov doesn't like strangers. If you're hiding anything, he'll find out." Maria forced a smile. "I'm here to clean floors, not secrets." But her heart hammered when she heard the footsteps. Heavy, commanding. Konstantin Volkov. Tall, broad-shouldered, and sharp as a blade, the Russian-American billionaire's presence swallowed the room. His steel-gray eyes swept over her, not with lust, but with the cold calculation of a man who measured everything and everyone in profit and loss. "You're Maria?" His voice carried a faint accent. "Yes, sir." "You've worked for powerful men before?" "No, sir." "Good." His lips curved, almost mocking. "The powerful have no patience for betrayal." The words struck like a knife. Did he know? Could he already sense the revenge burning behind her polite smile? Still, Maria lowered her head. "I only want to serve." Volkov studied her for a long, tense silence. "Then, you start tonight." And just like that, she crossed the threshold, not just into his mansion, but into a dangerous game where love and hatred would clash like fire and ice. Maria's first night in the Volkov estate felt less like work and more like stepping into a fortress. The mansion sprawled across acres of Connecticut land, grand halls with imported marble, staircases that gleamed like ivory, and portraits of stern Russian ancestors staring down at her from the walls. But there was something wrong. She noticed it while dusting the east wing, a door bolted shut, chained from the outside. "Don't touch that." Mr. Harrison's voice snapped behind her. The butler's normally calm tone carried an edge of warning. "Why?" Maria asked softly. "Because Mr. Volkov doesn't allow it." "Is it storage?" Harrison's eyes hardened. "It's none of your business." That was the first rule Maria learned: curiosity could get her fired or worse. That evening, during dinner service, she carried trays of steak and wine into Volkov's private dining room. He sat alone at a massive oak table, reviewing files and scribbling notes in Russian. "Do you always eat alone?" Maria asked before she could stop herself. Volkov's gaze lifted, sharp and cold. "You're paid to serve, not to talk." She flushed, lowering her head. But as she set down his glass of wine, she saw the papers spread before him: contracts, stock records, and one document stamped with the name of her father's company. Her pulse quickened. Evidence. Proof he'd destroyed Alexander Petrova's empire. Volkov noticed her glance linger too long. His hand moved, covering the papers. "You're curious," he said slowly. "No, sir." "Good. Because curiosity is the first step toward betrayal." His warning was clear. But Maria knew one thing: if she wanted revenge, she would need to find a way past the locked doors of this mansion, both the ones with chains and the one guarding Konstantin Volkov's heart. When Maria heard footsteps behind her in the dark hallway, she realized this housekeeper job might cost more than her freedom. It might cost her life. The mansion at night was different. During the day, sunlight spilled through the tall arched windows, softening the edges of the cold stone walls. But once the chandeliers dimmed and the staff retired, the house seemed alive. Shadows moved where no one walked. Doors creaked even when the air was still. Maria wrapped her robe tighter as she carried a silver tray back to the kitchen. She wasn't supposed to be in the East Wing after midnight, but a sound had drawn her there, a faint hum, almost like machinery. As she passed the bolted door again, her curiosity sharpened like a blade. This time she leaned closer. Beneath the crack of the door, she could see a faint light pulsing, and the sound of a generator. "What are you doing here?" Maria spun, almost dropping the tray. Konstantin Volkov stood in the shadows of the hallway, no suit this time, just dark slacks and a shirt, sleeves rolled up, his presence even more unnerving without the armor of power. I was returning the tray," she stammered. "At midnight?" His gray eyes narrowed. "Strange time for housekeeping." Maria tried to steady her breathing. "I heard something. I thought perhaps a window was open." Volkov stepped closer, so close she could smell the faint cologne on his skin. Wood, smoke, something dangerous. He studied her as if peeling back every layer of her lie. "Curiosity again," he murmured. "You'll learn, Maria, that in my house, curiosity can be fatal." Her pulse throbbed in her throat. "Are you threatening me?" His mouth curved in a humorless smile. "No. I'm warning you." The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken tension. Then, without another word, Volkov unlocked the door she had been staring at, just enough for him to slip inside. The hum of machinery grew louder for a second before the door shut behind him. Maria stood frozen, her mind racing. What was he hiding? Why chain a room shut inside your own mansion? But more frightening than the secret was the feeling that spread through her as his shadow disappeared behind the door. Because for the first time, her hatred wavered, and something far more dangerous took root. The following week brought storms to Connecticut. Rain battered the windows of the estate, and the staff moved like ghosts through the halls. Maria worked silently, polishing silver in the grand dining room, when she heard the slam of a door and the muffled sound of cursing in Russian. Curiosity tugged again. She followed the noise into Volkov's private study. He was there, leaning against his desk, his shirt sleeve ripped, blood running down his arm. His jaw clenched as he tried to wrap it with a strip of linen, but the stain only spread. Maria froze. For the first time, he didn't look untouchable. He looked human. "What happened?" she asked before she could stop herself. Volkov's eyes flicked to hers, sharp but laced with something else, weariness. "An old mistake," he muttered. "You should go." But she didn't. Against every plan for revenge, against every warning she'd given herself, Maria crossed the room. She set down her cleaning cloth and reached for his arm. "Let me," she said softly. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, surprisingly, he allowed it. Her hands were steady as she cleaned the wound with water from the basin. The gash wasn't deep, but it was messy, the kind that came from glass. She could smell whiskey on his breath, and when she glanced at the desk, she saw the shattered remains of a glass bottle. "You drink when you're angry," she whispered, more observation than question. His mouth curved faintly. "You watch too closely for a servant." "Maybe I'm just good at my job." Their eyes locked. His gray gaze softened for the briefest moment, a crack in the ice, and Maria's heart stuttered. He leaned slightly closer, his voice low. "Be careful, Maria. Some cracks never heal." She pulled back quickly, wrapping the linen tight and tying it off. "There," she said firmly. "You'll live." He chuckled, a sound she hadn't thought he was capable of. "Maybe I will." As she left the study, her mind swirled. The man she had sworn to destroy had bled in front of her. And she had cared. It terrified her more than anything. Because revenge was easy against a monster. But against a man? Against a man she was starting to feel something for? That was a war she hadn't prepared for. It was a Friday night in New York City, and the mansion felt strangely alive. Volkov had returned from a gala, his black suit crisp, his tie loosened, the faint scent of expensive cologne following him through the halls. Maria had been asked to bring him tea before he retired. Simple. Routine. But nothing about tonight felt routine. She entered his study, tray in hand, and found him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights glittered beyond the glass, a kingdom he owned. "Leave it on the desk," he said without looking at her. She did. But as she turned to go, his voice stopped her. "Why are you really here, Maria?" Her pulse skipped. I work here." "No," he said, finally facing her, his gray eyes piercing. "Most people work for money. But you watch me. You study me. As if you want to know what lies beneath the mask." Her breath caught. Did he suspect? "I don't know what you mean," she whispered. Volkov stepped closer, slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling prey. His presence filled the room, every inch of him radiating danger and power. "You hate me," he said softly, almost like a challenge. Maria swallowed hard. "Why would I hate you?" "Because I see it in your eyes. Fire. Hatred. But there's something else too." His gaze dropped briefly to her lips. "Something you fight harder to hide." Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heart hammering. Every instinct screamed to step back, to protect her mission, her secret. But her body betrayed her, frozen in place. He reached out, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face, lingering just a second too long. The touch burned through her, shattering every line she had drawn between revenge and desire. For a moment, just one heartbeat too long, the world went still, and it felt inevitable, unstoppable, that his lips would meet hers. But then, Maria jerked back, nearly knocking the tray from the desk. "I should go," she whispered, breathless. Volkov studied her, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a dangerous smile spread across his lips. "Run if you must. But you can't run from what's already inside you." Maria fled the study, her heart in chaos. She had come to destroy this man. And yet tonight, in his shadow, she had nearly surrendered to him. She pressed her back against the cold wall of the hallway, trembling. Because the truth was terrifying. Her revenge was no longer her greatest risk. Her heart was. The storm outside raged louder than ever, rain hammering the glass walls of the Greenwich estate. Maria had gone to the library late at night, unable to sleep, her thoughts twisted by Volkov's words, his touch, his nearness. She found him there, sitting alone by the fire. No suit this time, just a dark sweater and a glass of whiskey in hand. His posture wasn't regal. It wasn't commanding. For the first time, he looked tired. "You shouldn't wander the house at night," he said without looking at her. "And yet, you're here," Maria replied softly. His lips curved faintly. "Touché." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of fire. Finally, Maria asked, "Why chain a door in your own house?" His head turned sharply, his gray eyes narrowing. For a moment, she thought he'd order her out, maybe even fire her. But instead, he leaned back and took another drink. "Some doors," he said, voice low, "are better left closed." Maria hesitated, then walked closer. Her heart hammered, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. "I want to understand. Everyone paints you as untouchable. Ruthless. But I see something else." Volkov laughed bitterly. "Do you know what it's like to build an empire from nothing, only to watch vultures circle, waiting for you to stumble? I wasn't born into wealth like the Rockefellers or Vanderbilts. My father was a drunk who gambled away everything. I came here with nothing but a name people mocked." His gaze darkened. "So I learned fast, mercy is weakness. Trust is suicide. The only way to survive is to crush before you're crushed." Maria's throat tightened. She wanted to scream at him for what he did to her father, for the empire built on other people's ashes. But she saw something raw flicker in his eyes. Pain. Loneliness. "You've lost someone," she whispered. Volkov's jaw tightened. "A wife." Maria froze. "She believed in me when no one else did. And then, she died. Too young. I buried her with my last shred of softness. Since then, there's only been the empire." For a moment, Maria forgot the script of revenge. She forgot the oath she'd sworn at her father's grave. All she saw was a broken man, hiding behind marble walls and steel-gray eyes. And in that silence, as the firelight danced between them, she realized the most dangerous truth of all. Her enemy had a heart. And it was calling to hers. The storm had passed, leaving the mansion eerily quiet. Maria couldn't sleep. Volkov's confession echoed in her mind, wrapping around her heart like a chain she couldn't break. So, against her better judgment, she slipped into the east wing. The bolted door, the one chained from the outside, stared back at her. Tonight, the chain hung loose, unlocked. Her pulse quickened. This was her chance. She pushed it open. Inside was not a vault of gold or a room of secrets. It was an archive. Rows of filing cabinets. Stacks of dusty boxes. And folders stamped with names, companies, contracts, takeovers. The rise and ruin of Volkov's empire catalogued in detail. Her fingers trembled as she pulled one folder free. Petrova Imports. Her father's company. She braced herself for evidence of Volkov's ruthlessness. But what she found made her blood run cold. A letter. Signed by her father. A deal gone wrong. He had taken a massive loan against his company, gambling on an expansion that collapsed. Volkov had simply bought the pieces after it crumbled. Her father hadn't been destroyed by Volkov's cruelty. He had been destroyed by his own mistake. No, Maria whispered, clutching the papers. That can't be true. But the documents were clear. Her father hadn't been innocent. And Volkov, her enemy, her target, hadn't swung the blade. He had just claimed what was left. You shouldn't be here. Maria froze. Volkov stood in the doorway, his eyes like steel, his expression unreadable. Looking for ghosts, Maria? His voice was calm, but beneath it lay something sharper. Her throat tightened. I wanted to know the truth. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming the small space. And did you find it? Tears burned in her eyes. Hatred, grief, confusion, all tangled together until she could hardly breathe. Yes, she whispered. But the truth isn't what I thought it was. For the first time since she'd arrived, his gaze softened, not as a billionaire, not as a predator, but as a man who knew what it was like to live with shadows. You hate me less now, he murmured. Maria shook her head, her voice breaking. No. I hate myself, for not knowing sooner. And in that moment, standing between the ruins of the past and the fire of the present, Maria realized her war with Konstantin Volkov was no longer about revenge. It was about survival of her heart, her sanity, and the truth she could no longer ignore. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with unusual energy. The staff whispered in corners. Security guards moved through the halls with hard eyes. Something was different. Maria tried to act normal, polishing the silver trays in the dining hall. But her nerves buzzed like live wires. After what she had discovered in the archives, she didn't know where she stood anymore. Her father's downfall, her mission, her hatred, it was all unraveling. Then Mr. Harrison appeared at the door, his face pale. Mr. Volkov wants to see you, he said, his voice tight. Maria's heart thudded. She followed him into the study. Konstantin sat behind his desk, files spread before him. But this time, he wasn't reading. He was waiting. And in his hand, was her father's photo. Maria froze. Volkov's eyes lifted, gray and unreadable. I had you checked. Backgrounds leave footprints, Maria. Or should I say, Maria Petrova? Her knees almost buckled. He knew. You came into my house under false pretenses, he continued, his voice low and dangerous. You wanted to destroy me. Maria swallowed hard, her throat dry. I thought you ruined my father. And now? His gaze sharpened. Do you still think I did? Her silence was answer enough. Volkov stood, circling the desk until he was inches from her. His presence towered over her, every word cutting like a blade. You seduced your way into my home. Into my trust. Into my life. Do you know what that makes you, Maria? Her voice cracked. I didn't seduce you. He laughed bitterly, his hand brushing her cheek, not tenderly this time, but like a reminder of what they had shared. No? Then why does it feel like betrayal cuts deeper than any business war? Tears stung her eyes. Because it wasn't all a lie. For the first time, his mask slipped. Pain flickered across his features, raw and unguarded. But it was gone as quickly as it came. Leave, he said coldly. Before I forget the part of me that still believes you're worth sparing. Her breath hitched. Constantine. Go, he thundered, slamming his hand against the desk. The sound echoed through the study like a gunshot. Maria stumbled backward, her chest aching as if her heart had been torn in two. She had come for revenge. She had found love instead. And now, she had lost both. Days passed in silence. Maria no longer worked in the mansion, she lingered only because she had nowhere else to go. The staff avoided her, whispers trailing behind her like smoke. Volkov, meanwhile, shut himself away. No glances. No words. No trace of the man who had bled in front of her, confessed his scars, or nearly kissed her. Until one night. Maria found herself drawn to the balcony overlooking the gardens. The air was heavy, thunderclouds rolling across the Connecticut sky. She gripped the railing, torn between running and staying, between hatred and longing. Behind her, a door opened. Still here, Volkov's voice cut through the night. Low. Dangerous. She turned. He stood in the doorway, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his face shadowed but his eyes burning. You should have left, he said. Maybe I should have, she whispered. But I didn't. Lightning flashed, illuminating the tension between them. You betrayed me, he said, stepping closer. You lied about who you are. You came into my home to destroy me. Her chest ached. And you destroyed my father's life, at least I thought you did. What do you want from me, Constantine? Hate? Love? Revenge? He stopped inches away, his breath hot against her skin. I don't know, he admitted, voice raw. I only know I can't let you go. Before she could answer, his mouth crashed against hers. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tender. It was fire and thunder, rage and need, love and hate tangled into one storm. Her hands pushed against his chest, but her lips clung to his, betraying her mission, betraying her father, betraying herself. When they finally tore apart, both were trembling. This is madness, Maria whispered, breathless. Yes, Volkov growled, his hand gripping her waist. But it's our madness. Another clap of thunder shook the sky. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside them. And as the rain poured, Maria realized the truth she had been running from all along. She didn't just want revenge anymore. She wanted him. Even if it destroyed her. The storm had passed. The mansion was still, the air heavy with the silence of decisions yet to be made. Maria sat alone in her small room, staring at the files she had stolen from the archive, proof that her father's downfall had been his own gamble, not Volkov's cruelty. Yet holding the papers didn't ease her pain. If anything, it deepened it. Her father's memory demanded vengeance. But her heart demanded Constantine. A knock shattered her thoughts. She opened the door to find Volkov himself. No guards. No suit. Just a man, stripped of his armor. We can't keep living in this war, he said simply. You hate me, Maria. I hate what you tried to do. But neither of us can walk away. Not anymore. Her voice trembled. So what are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice. His gray eyes softened, for once unguarded. Destroy me. Or love me. But don't stand in the middle. The middle will kill us both. Her chest tightened, tears brimming. If I love you, I betray my father. And if you destroy me, Volkov said quietly, you betray yourself. The silence that followed was suffocating. Maria's mind flashed with every memory, her father's broken body in Chicago, Volkov's bleeding arm, his bitter laughter, his confession, his kiss under the storm. Finally, she stepped forward, pressing the files against his chest. I don't want your empire, she whispered. I only want the man buried beneath it. Volkov's breath caught. Slowly, almost hesitantly, his hands closed over hers. And then, for the first time without anger, without fear, without pretense, he kissed her. It wasn't the firestorm of before. It was softer, fragile, a promise born from pain and survival. When they pulled apart, Maria whispered, this isn't the end, Constantine. We'll both carry scars. He nodded. Yes. But scars remind us that we lived. The mansion was silent again, but this time, the silence was not suffocating. It was full of possibility. Maria had chosen not revenge. Not hate. But love, dangerous, fragile, impossible love. And as she rested her head against his chest, she knew, this was only the beginning of a different kind of war.